Homing bracket!
What's going on, everyone? So welcome to my latest video. This is of course part of a series where I focus on a specific director and rank that director's work from worst to best. Done such directors in the past such as Wes Anderson, David Lynch, David Fincher, the list goes on. You guys can check that out on my playlist down below for all my directors. I've done at this point 50 plus directors, so you guys can check that out down below. But guys, you clicked on this video so you know it. This time around I'm focusing on Christopher McQuarrie's films and ranking them from worst to best. Now keep in mind, this is a director that has done 4 films. And I know what you guys are thinking, wait a minute, he's written more movies. Not including movies that he's only written, because truth be told, again, because he's a director and writer, there are movies that he's only written and he didn't also direct, such as like The Usual Suspects. Not including that movie because, again, he didn't direct it. So this is just for the 4 movies that he directed as of the filming of this video, of course, which is August of 2021. So I'm going to be ranking them, 4 being his worst, 1 being his best, and of course, my opinion. So also shout out to a subscriber of mine who actually recommended that I do this director. I really do appreciate it. But guys, enough exposition. Let's get started. So kicking things off with my number 4 being his worst is The Way of the Gun. So this movie I actually watched yesterday in preparation for this video because I hadn't seen this movie up until now, hadn't even heard of it up until now. This was a movie that I thought was mixed, honestly. I enjoyed myself in some aspects, especially like the shootout scenes and the chemistry between the actors. But truth be told, it never rose above the cliches of the genre, unfortunately. I get why some people might like this. I do believe that there's like a cult following for this movie. But for myself, I just found myself feeling mixed about it. I didn't hate it by any means, but I wouldn't really recommend it unless you want to watch all of this director's work, honestly, because there's nothing really that's making it stand out. I do honestly respect and appreciate, though, the fact that this was his first movie, because there definitely was sparks of like what he would later on become in terms of like a director and writer. So, The Way of the Gun, not bad, but that's why it's my number 4 in terms of just being a mixed movie. Kicking things off, next up, my number 3, obviously that was my number 4. My number 3 is Mission Impossible: Rogue Nation. So this movie I've only seen one time. I saw it in theaters back in 2015, summer of 2015, I might add, so 6 years ago. I remember enjoying it, but I remember enjoying it up until like the final act, and then the final act, I remember them not taking it to the next step. In my opinion, I felt like they kind of literally said through exposition what could have been like a better movie had they done it, but instead that exposition they just kind of threw it out the window and they did something else that just kind of fell more in line with like cliches of the genre, which left a bad taste in my mouth, at least from my remembrance. But I do remember there being enjoyable stunts. Tom Cruise did a really good job, especially with those stunts. Very charismatic, had a pretty cool motorcycle chase. I remember it being entertaining, but it didn't really stick with me other than, hey, that final act, they did some things that fell into cliches that could have risen above the cliches. So that's my memory of it. Again, I remember enjoying it. I do have a review for it. It's one of my first reviews, honestly, for this channel 6 years ago, but I remember enjoying it. But nothing really else. So that's my number 3. Next up, my number 2 is Jack Reacher. So Jack Reacher also stars Tom Cruise, and Tom Cruise, I haven't read the books, but apparently he looks and isn't the height in the slightest of like the character of the books. But for me personally, because I didn't read the books, I didn't really care. I thought Tom Cruise did a really good job. The movie has some humor in it that I thought really worked. It's mostly serious, and I do honestly think that it worked. I've seen it 2-3 times. One time I saw it in theaters, December of 2012, and then I remember seeing it, I believe, on DVD a couple months later, and then I did see it a third time, I think, the following year. So I haven't seen this movie in probably 7-8 years, but I do remember enjoying it and also kind of getting some like Drive vibes almost. Obviously, Drive's a much better movie, but I remember Jack Reacher really being something that took its time with things, and I appreciate that for an action movie, especially an action movie with Tom Cruise, because, you know, when you think of Tom Cruise, you think of movies being like, you know, high-octane, fast-paced nature, and this movie wasn't. It took its time with things, and I do appreciate that. Did have some cliches, though. I do think that one scene towards the end where the characters literally throw away their guns to fight, wasn't a big fan of that. That's something John Wick also did a couple years later. I don't know why they're doing that other than, hey, let's have a fist fight. But if you're going to have a fist fight, may as well not have the guns, because I feel like most people, if they really want to kill someone, they're not going to throw away their opportunity, literally. So, I don't know. That's just me, though. But, yeah, it's my number 2. Next up, my number 1. You guys probably guessed it already, but my number 1 is Mission Impossible: Fallout. So I think it's safe to say that this might be my favorite movie in the Mission Impossible franchise, as well as obviously my favorite Christopher McQuarrie film. I've seen it twice now. It got a lot better the second time, honestly. Like, I enjoyed it quite a bit the first time, but the second time I liked it even more. It's perfectly paced. It's got a lot of great action scenes. Tom Cruise again is at the top of his game. Honestly, everyone gives their A game. It's a very good story, in my opinion. I do think that the last like 5 minutes is kind of cheesy, especially with everything else that the movie kind of set up. But besides that, I mean, I'll take 5 minutes of cheese over like an entire final act. With like Mission Impossible: Rogue Nation, as well as this is the one that again I've seen it twice. But the other Mission Impossible movies I never really want to come back to. But this one, obviously, I wanted to come back to so much I bought it on 4K. So it's a good movie. I quite enjoy it, and it's definitely a lot of fun to watch, and it's why it's my favorite Christopher McQuarrie film. So yeah, that's my ranking, guys. I do like to talk a little bit about the director, after obviously ranking. And Christopher McQuarrie I want to talk about just a little bit. I respect him. I think that it's kind of cool that he does kind of mess around with like this genre, of action and crime. I think for the most part he does a pretty good job. Sometimes the dialogue is a little off, but a lot of times it is pretty engaging, especially with Jack Reacher and obviously Fallout. He's a director writer that he's not one of my favorite by any means, but he is someone that I think is rock solid. And for now on, if I see hey, he's directing something, I'll definitely watch it. I'm definitely curious. I believe actually. Fun fact, with Mission Impossible Fallout, a little bit after when this movie came out, my one friend actually got to, talk to Mr. McQuarrie and says that he's a really cool guy. So, also very excited to see, again, more of his movies that are going to be coming out, because this is a director that he's done 4 movies. I'm sure that he's going to be doing like 4 more by the end of his career, probably even more. So, definitely a director that's up and coming, more so to the point of someone that is going to be getting even more work. And he's rock solid. So yeah, guys, Christopher McQuarrie, those are my thoughts on his films, ranking them worst to best, obviously spoiler free. Let me know your ranking of his films down below, and as always, go through subscription, notification bell, and all that. Catch you guys later.